You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm tellin' you why, Santi's coming to town. Accompanied by sweet singing, a festival marked by an old man with a white beard is coming. Although those who have studied religion may know that the true birth date of the Trinity of the Holy Son with the Father and the Holy Spirit is around the vernal equinox, this does not prevent them from enjoying the annual festival. On the eve of Christmas, the streets of Los Angeles are permeated with a peaceful atmosphere, as if the impetuous, seductive, and bizarre city of angels in the usual days, angels have really come tonight. The same is true in St. Andrew's Hospital. As a hospital, the diffuse smell of Lysol water can never become the scent of turkey dinner, but the Christmas tree studded with various ornaments still gives this hospital a festive feeling. Although it is not easy to kiss a beautiful nurse under the mistletoe, the company of a dozen Santa Clauses still makes the patients feel a touch of warmth. They hugged and posed for photos with the smiling ho-ho-ho Santa Clauses, and accepted the worthless gifts from the fake old people with fake beards. They didn't care at all that under the fake white beard, what was hidden under the fake white beard was a drunkard, a thief, or a fool who often goes to heaven. This is the miracle of Christmas, a miracle that only belongs to this day. However, no matter what kind of miracle moment, happiness is always accompanied by misfortune, just like the entangled light and shadow. Happiness always needs misfortune to set off, and unlucky people will be more aware of their misfortune when they see the happiness of others. Would you like to buy a lucky rabbit leg for transfer? There is no doubt that Sally's luck in the last few days is not so good. And looking at the guy with gauze on his forehead, his eyes closed, and his hands still making strange gestures, she couldn't help feeling that today's luck seemed to be worse. It's already Christmas Eve. Lord, please bless me. Although he is not a devout believer, everyone has the mentality of holding Buddha's feet temporarily. When it comes to Los Angeles, many people will naturally connect with Hollywood, and Sally is no exception. She has been working hard in Hollywood for a while, and although it can't be said to be smooth sailing, she finally got her first role last month. Of course, it's just a small supporting role that can't be smaller, even if there is a line. It all depends on how the final editing is done. But compared to a girl who drifts in Hollywood and can only make a living in a restaurant on weekdays, and occasionally gets harassed by some freaks, Sally, who has been a model, can already be said to be driving on the fast lane of fame. As I said before, happiness always needs misfortune to set off. If it's someone else's misfortune, it would be even better. However, in the fast lane, there is always the probability of an accident. After all, not everyone is a veteran driver, and you don't know if you are on a hearse. What's more, when God opens a window for you, who knows if his old man who likes pranks will put up another door behind the window, and then put 7 or 8 locks on the door. Yesterday, the director called her and told her unfortunately that her role had been cancelled due to the adjustment of the script. Although the director's tone was indeed regret, the dissatisfaction that could not be concealed in the words convinced Sally that the reason she had lost the role she had already obtained was only because the director hinted at her when she was drinking at a bar the other day. Went to wait for him in the alley behind the bar, dedicated to art, but she directly relayed these words to a gentleman next to her with a white earring stud in his left ear and wearing an exquisite Italian handmade suit, and hinted at this: "Sir, the director admires him very much. I can only help you here, I wish you happiness. Don't thank me." Sally wanted to reply to Mr. Director in this way, but to her regret, she forgot to ask the name of Mr. Earring. However, even though her body is covered with spikes, Sally is still a young girl after all. This frustration made her very depressed, and she got drunk in the cider house near the rented apartment. Although at the last moment before she fell drunk while vomiting, she realized that as a beautiful young girl, her drunk herself would definitely become the favorite of the corpse pickers cruising nearby, but her liver did not have an instant ability to metabolize large amounts of alcohol. If when I wake up, I find myself sleeping in a cheap hotel room with someone's pipe in my mouth, I must bite it down. This is the determination that the girl made before she fell drunk. Fortunately, God did not arrange her fate as a criminal. Unfortunately, when she woke up with a hangover headache, she was in the hospital with the expensive ambulance bill in front of her. What? After drinking, I was about to jump from the overpass to commit suicide. Although I was rescued, the person who saved me passed out. Sally couldn't believe it when she learned the cause of the incident from the rude doctor named House. Let's not say that the height of the street bridge is enough to commit suicide. I used to be a model. A model. A model. Do you know what a model is? Just to make yourself skinny and torture your own fool like a slave owner tortures a poor slave every day in order to save myself a pound of meat. I would rather go to Sherlock. How could such a fool who left all his weight in Venice seriously wound a big man? Doctor, do you think I am a fool? Well, although the young girl is already incoherent, the things she doesn't want to believe are obviously special. However, Dr. House was indifferent to the girl's excitement. Even if you can deny Newton's law of inertia, you still have to pay the hospital bills. Cash is still a credit card. The former model, I don't want to be a fool who is a fool. People who can see through the essence of things at a glance are really annoying. She would commit suicide after drinking, which really shocks Sally. But for this young girl who is floating in Hollywood without social security and just lost her job, what is even more terrible is the ambulance bill. Which bitch called the ambulance? Save the people and save the people. What kind of ambulance is called? It's better to leave me alone. Don't know how expensive this American ambulance is. At this moment, for Sally who has an empty purse, Toby or not Tobe, this is a problem. Of course, Sally also knew that this ambulance was actually called more for the unlucky person who was smashed by her. After all, the reason why she jumped from the sky bridge didn't even hurt a single piece, thanks to the guy below. She doesn't need to come to the hospital, it's hard to tell the other party. After weighing her conscience and wallet for a long time, Sally decided to pay for her savior. Of course, this is because the ambulance obviously cannot be called by a comatose person, and secondly, it is impossible for a comatose person to pay. Just in this way, her wallet was completely turned into a vacuum. If it weren't for 2 credit cards to overdraft, she might only be able to buy 3 matches for Christmas this year and light them in the corner to keep warm. If I can't find any acting opportunities these days, I guess I can only go to the Cheesecake Factory to work with Penny. The girl who had prepared for the worst, decided to take another look at the culprit who caused her current condition before leaving the hospital, though in the final analysis, it should be her own drunkenness that caused the following series of things. But as everyone knows, it is a woman's privilege to be unreasonable, and Sally obviously does not intend to give up this privilege. WTF? This guy is awake. Wake up early, not wake up late, but you woke up as soon as the old lady paid the bill, deliberately. Obviously, poverty does not limit Sally's imagination, but also indirectly magnifies her brain. But what does this mean? Although Dr. House said that a concussion may cause short-term memory loss, in this picture, what is lost is not the memory at all, but the whole brain. Looking at the other person lying on the hospital bed, closing her eyes, muttering words in her mouth, and constantly making weird gestures with her hands, Sally's first reaction was that this guy had lost her mind. But, how come the movements in this guy's hands are a bit like the movements of the Daoshi people in Hong Kong movies I have watched before? At this moment, the unintelligible person opened his eyes. PS1, the title of the first chapter, I believe everyone has seen it, City of Angels, a very famous old movie. Of course it is also an alias for Los Angeles. The names of all chapters in this book, I hope to be able to use the names of movies, TV series, animations, and novels, sometimes followed by subtitles, as a summary of the chapter content. PS2, because the book is essentially a movie, there are chapters that actually shot a certain movie, so when I use the movie's name as the title, at that time, I will add the book title to the movie's name. Read www.yuyukanshu.com to distinguish between those topics in normal times. PS3, the song at the beginning is Santa Claus Enters the City. Although it is not well known in China for Jingle Bells, it is also a good Christmas song. It is very flavorful. It is quoted in many American TV shows and movies, such as A Christmas Special of Bones, PS4, Rabbit Legs Can Bring Luck. It is a superstitious tradition in the United States. Some say it originated from voodoo, and some say it comes from Indian legends. Anyway, some people believe in this. PS5, who is the one from The Big Bang Theory that is used to compare with Sally, needless to say. Since it's a Hollywood story, I will insert some Easter eggs in it by the way. PS6, by the way, anything like this, from a character in a film and television drama to a real character in a novel, the relevant film and television drama will not be specifically written in this book, so the protagonist of this book it will not shoot or produce The Big Bang Theory like many Hollywood books. PS7, men's earrings and handmade Italian suits are generally symbols of gay. Su Zheng and Huang Bo also borrowed this stock in Heart Flower Road Fang. PS8, where did Dr. House get the Easter eggs? Needless to say, PS9, Sally's self-deprecating, taken from Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. PS10, Toby or not Tobe, what works from Shakespeare, needless to say. PS11, 3 matches, taken from The Little Match Girl. PS12, Cheesecake Factory is a small well-known chain restaurant in the United States. Although it is an Italian restaurant, it seems to sell everything. Petunia in The Big Bang Theory works there. Charlotte, with the same name as Charlotte in Charlotte Annoyance, at this time, he is also facing the same annoyance. Is this a crossing? A moment ago, he was still in China in 2017, busy producing post-production for the project. After a while, he was in the United States in 1993, lying on the bed with gauze on his head, and Santa Claus Enters Town was still ringing in his ears? Yes, is this really 1993? Well, if the news broadcast on the TV in the ward just now wasn't something idler deliberately tricked him out, then the current President of the United States may indeed be that one. It seems that I should have really crossed it, although there is no BGM. My 1997 is also right. If I did not read the calendar wrong, then it is only 1993 after all. Ahem, stop. This place is separated from my hometown in 2017 by the Pacific Ocean. If you follow the customs, the BGM at this time is probably Empire March is the most suitable. Yes, the era I came to was the eve of such an information age, the Empire of the United States at noon. So, as a traverser, what should I do most at this time? Buy Apple stock, Google stock, Oracle stock, buy. These are basically routines. Going the way of Facebook, let Facebook have no face to sell. Going the way of YouTube, let YouTube's tubing run out of oil. These can be, although the last item always feels something is wrong. It's still a matter of copying the big ship and copying Avatar, it's really not good. It's okay to copy Game of Thrones. These are not bad, but if not as an ordinary traverser, but as a person like Charlotte, what would he most want to do when he traveled to the United States in 1993? He saw that he was lying on the hospital bed with no one noticing around him, so he closed his eyes that had just been opened, and quietly pinched his finger that, as the old ghost said, is it useful in this era? Boy, don't learn this from me. This is the age of domination, understand? Age of domination. These things won't be useful anymore. Close his eyes. Lao Guina is not so angry, it is a helpless roar, as if still echoing in his ears. He always wanted to hear what the old ghost said and forget those weird things, but he couldn't do it all the time. High mountains are very dangerous, but there are always people who take the risk to climb, regardless of whether they will die in the mountains. Because the mountain is there, the moon Artemis is high above him, and will never be reachable, but mankind has finally taken that small step forward. Because the moon is there, spells are considered by everyone to be non-existent, only fools can believe, but he always believes, because the spells are there. The old ghost proved to him that it was a spell. So, he would rather be a fool. After all, people have no ideals, so what is the difference between them and salted fish? However, there is always a reason why a fool is called a fool. He meditates and exercises every day, but he always gains very little. The effect of strengthening his body is not even as good as the Tajiquan practiced by the old men in the park. He has sneaked into the morgue of the big hospital countless times, hoping to see the light of the soul that is about to disappear. But what he sees is always the flashlight of the night security guard. He visited an unknown number of haunted houses, hoping to find the same kind of old ghosts, which can be seen, except for the annoying demolition character, there is only condoms all over the floor. What is the age of domination? This is the age of domination. He is like the person who learned the skills of slaying dragons in Zhuangzi. Because the dragon no longer exists. Although the old ghost once told him that even in the age of doom, as long as the entire human civilization can have a single most prosperous point, the light and shadow will coexist, and under the shadow of prosperity, 100 ghosts will naturally breed. At that time, the aura that supports ordinary people's spell casting will also emerge from nothingness. However, he couldn't catch the right time. The strange dark night recorded in Duanchenshi Yuyang Miscellaneous came at the peak of the Tang dynasty Kaiwan Tianbao, and he naturally couldn't catch up. As for the Endoft century demon capital of London, where legendary figures such as Jack the Ripper are active, although it is aspirational, at that time, his grandfather's grandfather was fighting battle in the waves of the Yellow Sea. The closest point in time to him is actually not far away. Unfortunately, when he learned about the existence of spells, Lehman Brothers had gone bankrupt, and the world had completely entered a multipolar era. Although this is a good thing for many people and many countries, it just made him miss his last chance. As for waiting for his country to become the new strongest, although it is not as far away as Wangshi Beiding Zhong Yuan Day, it is really hard to predict whether he can catch up. Passing time is always hard to recover. Every time he failed in his efforts, he secretly hoped that the miracle of crossing would happen, although this is even for him who believes in the existence of magic. www.mtlnovel.com. It's also weird. However, now the miracle really happened. So, is what the old ghost said true? He transported it. In fact, it was a tactic called Tanlingju. It sounds tall, but its only function is to detect whether there is any aura that can be used nearby. Before crossing, apart from the small amount of aura that the old ghost drew from his soul when he taught him a spell, he never saw any other aura. And without aura, naturally there is no way to cast spells. At that time, he could only be a magical theorist. The era of the last Dharma, as the name suggests. After crossing, it is now 1993. Then, according to the old ghost's theory that light and shadow coexist under the shadow of the only flourishing age, in the United States, the world center of this era, will the aura that can support him to cast spells appear? He finished exploring Lingju, but he didn't dare to open his eyes to find out. After all, this is not the anime that only relies on football and anesthesia needles, and then shouts there is only one truth that can solve all problems. The countless failed attempts over the years have filled his heart with doubts. Now, when the truth is right in front of him, he no longer dared to open his eyes to confirm. Does spells really exist? In other words, does the old ghost who convinced himself the existence of magic really exist? Is he his own illusion? Are you awake? Are you stupid? The cold female voice sounded not far away, and he opened his eyes in a shock. The next moment, he smiled and left tears. A blonde girl is standing slim in front of the hospital bed, surrounded by mist-like aura. The aura exudes mottled brilliance in his eyes, like a group of colorful auspicious clouds. I was wrong before, Charlotte Booth, you are not a fool. Looking at the talking man in front of him, Sally decided to correct her judgment half an hour ago. You are a liar, a clumsy liar. Actually, I feel this way myself. Being denounced as a liar, Charlotte couldn't help but smile. From China in 2017 back to the United States in 1993, her name changed from Charlotte in Chinese to Charlotte in English. If this experience is to be heard, will definitely be considered a liar. However, Charlotte, or Charlotte now, is not naive enough to tell this incredible adventure to a girl who just met. The reason why he was identified as a liar by the girl was actually another. I didn't mean to lie to you, but when I opened my eyes in a coma, I saw such an amazing beauty standing in front of me. Anyone would suspect that it was a dream, so that my brain was confused and incoherent. So, you are not a botched liar, but a botched striker, are you? Was so robbed of the beauty by the beauty, Charlotte could only nod and smile wryly. Who makes life far more bizarre than novels, and tells the truth even more unbelievable. Seeing Sally's first glance, Charlotte discovered through her little chance to use the spirit quest before, that this beautiful blonde and blue-eyed child has the aura that she has been searching for many years, a kind of ghost unique breath. After all, although aura is hard to find in this age of Dharma, it does not mean that it is always colorful when it appears. In fact, according to the knowledge that Charlotte learned from the old ghosts, the only thing that would make the aura that should have seemed to be indistinguishable from mist radiate colorful light, only the breath of various ghosts. That is to say, this girl named Sally must have been in contact with some ghost recently, and she will leave a strong ghost atmosphere on her body, causing the nearby aura to glow. Of course, this kind of light can only be seen when Charlotte is using the detective technique. In the eyes of ordinary people, Sally is just a beautiful blonde girl. This discovery made Charlotte, who was quite calm even in the face of such a bizarre event, excited, quite a kind of melancholy that Wu Go finally used, so that tears flowed down her face. However, just as the old saying goes, misfortunes never come singly, but good fortunes never come. After life has given you a sweet date, you will always habitually attach a stick again to show fairness. Needless to say, the tearful, contemptuous stupid look, what's worse, afterwards, Charlotte was so excited that he forgot to pass the lessons of the past and told the story about ghosts. The result was naturally the front. That's it. Speaking of which, this is quite normal. Even if it is Charlotte himself, if someone suddenly tells him something like "Your Excellency is going black, there will be a catastrophe coming soon" or something like that, he would be unreasonable. Maybe I will go back to the last sentence with interest. Really? Your Excellency has such a vision? I think that Your Excellency faces strangely, and his bones are amazed. This important task of safeguarding world peace is left to you. In a sense, Sally's answer also means this. Since you can see through it, then I, a botched hitchhiker, won't be oblivious. If you fail to do anything, then you can do it again. Charlotte decided to regroup and save the country. Beautiful lady, can you have a drink? Since you have been considered a liar, you can simply use the liar's method. Anyway, I haven't done this before. All right. After hesitating, Sally finally agreed, as Charlotte expected. In fact, for Charlotte, who was stunned by herself in order to save herself, Sally did not doubt that the other party had any evil intentions, but the first impression left by the latter was not very good, so she hesitated for a while. Promise it down. This is more out of consideration for repaying favors, that is to say the so-called pity date. But, you just woke up from a coma, so you're going to drink, is that okay? Certainly. Charlotte shook his head. Maybe it was the incidental enhancement of the crossing, he really didn't feel any mental dizziness. Even if I have a party with a large group of beauties tonight, I will definitely be fine. I think your problem is more serious, and I don't even have a sense of consciousness. Sally glared at him with disgust, apparently understanding what he meant. Even if you don't cherish your body, please cherish the US dollar, call girl asks for money. Really? I really haven't experienced this before, he. Charlotte smirked a little awkwardly, and ended the conversation, but there was a moment of depression in her heart. Shit. I have been in the magic house for too long, and I don't know how to talk to a woman. The statement just now is simply seeking a dead end. Forget it, since you don't care about it, why should I worry about it? Sally waved her hand. There happens to be a bar I am more familiar with nearby, do you want to go? After, she seemed to remember something. The girl shook her lips and added another sentence. However, I have to pay the bill this time. No problem. Charlotte simply agreed. The goal he had been searching for many years finally revealed the light. How could he even care about a little money? So, because of your arrangement, Mr. Director had a unique encounter. Should you call you Cupid, a kind lady? Charlotte, holding a wine glass, blinked at Sally, then couldn't help laughing again. Oh, God, bless the miserable chrysanthemum of the poor director. May he not be bent. Sally also laughed. Although Charlotte's words are very rude, Sally is not a daughter from the Upper East Side of New York. Moreover, it is the director who was teased. It doesn't matter, if you are really bent, you can go to the fashion circle. There, Gay is at the top of the food chain. This can be said to be the first-hand experience of the former model Sally, and the reason why she switched to acting as an actor, in addition to the actual factor of the income gap between the two, is also one of the reasons why she has not been able to adapt to the style of fashion circles. So, Sally, if you were to choose one more time, would you still choose to refuse the director's request? Hearing this suddenly becoming a formal question, Sally suddenly felt that the wine in her mouth became bitter. She crooked the corners of her mouth boringly, who knows? But, I think if my career remains the same in another year, I shouldn't refuse. I don't know if that nasty director will be bent, but I will continue to do so. I'm almost bent by reality. Hey, who can not bend for 5 buckets of rice? Charlotte sighed in her heart. She wanted to say something, but at last she thought about it and gave up. This is Hollywood. However, a vigorous girl like you would want to commit suicide, which is really beyond my imagination. It's not just you, I didn't expect it myself. Sally took another sip of wine. Last night I just wanted to drink and vent, but I was drunk. When I woke up, I was told that I had experienced an attempted suicide. Originally, I thought I was waking up in a small hotel and a stranger, lying next to me. The same unfamiliar man is already the worst result. I don't think the latter case is considered the worst result. Charlotte blinked. It all depends on whether that man is handsome enough. At least you are not good at it. Sally hit Charlotte mercilessly. If you want to take me away from this bar, if you don't have a handsome baby face, you have to have the skills of Spider-Man. The bar they are in, not far from the hospital where they came out, is the cider house where Sally was drunk last time. After sneaking here from the hospital, the tequila was eaten several times, and the atmosphere between the two immediately became warm. Spider-Man? I didn't expect. Sally, you are still a girl who likes to read comics. No, I am not. Sally vetoed it without hesitation. I just heard that a great director seemed to want to adapt this comic into a movie, so he did some homework. Do you want to play Mary Jane? Charlotte did not expect Sally to have such thoughts. What's so strange? Sally was spitting alcohol in her mouth, her eyes were hazy, she was obviously a little drunk. If I can play the leading role, even if I want to appear naked and have over the Brooklyn Bridge, it will be fine. This. Charlotte shrugged, and finally decided not to be familiar with drunks. He beckoned to the bartender and asked for 2 cups of eggnog. This is a drink that fits the Christmas Eve atmosphere, which happens to be available in this bar, and then handed one of them to Sally. Tonight is Christmas Eve, Mary Jane, I wish you an early realization of your dream, Brooklyn Bridge. He raised the cup in his hand and blinked. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Sally took a sip of eggnog and sent her mother a holiday blessing. A long-lost happy smile appeared on her mother's face, and she gently grasped father's hand. Dad. The sweet eggnog in the mouth instantly turned into the taste of soapy water. You reading www. Yuyuganshu.com. Sally woke up all of a sudden. It turned out to be a dream. Sally sighed lightly, and a bitterness slipped through her heart. Wait, where is this? Drowsiness faded and her sanity returned. Sally suddenly realized what the most important problem is now. Fortunately, it's my own bed. There are still some girls with headaches reaching out and groping around on the bed. There is no other person lying beside him. Sally breathed a sigh of relief, but the next moment, where are my clothes? At this time, although she was not lying on the bed as she was at birth, except for the thin blanket covering the attractive carcass, the number of clothes left was small enough to be comparable to the working state of the previous underwear model. Sleeping Beauty is awake. Just as she was nervous and suspicious, a man's voice rang at the door of the room. Sally turned her head to look. Sure enough, Charlotte did not wear long trousers, only a sleeveless vest. Her head with gauze was a bit funny, but in the eyes of Sally at this time, it was so ugly and disgusting. Your wine is really bad. Not only do you cry and spit on people when you are drunk. The man said something long, but Sally couldn't hear it at all. There was a buzzing in her mind, and her right hand touched under the mattress unconsciously. I managed to get you back. It's really because you were so drunk that you still remember where your door opened. My clothes are thrown up by you so badly. You see, halfway through the conversation, Charlotte's voice suddenly stopped. In front of him, Sally, who was wearing only her underwear, was holding a gun in her right hand, and the black muzzle was facing him. If I just die like this, I will definitely be the most embarrassed traverser ever. Looking at the muzzle of the black hole in front of him, Charlotte was nervously standing behind his back, but his mind couldn't help thinking about it. It's not necessarily. At least I feel severe pain in my lower body compared to when I walk through it. I have a book called The Treasure of Sunflowers on hand. A big tree with the words Pang Wan died under this tree and something like that. I'm already lucky. Well, this standard is indeed too low. Charlotte laughed mockingly, but found that Sally, who was pointing a gun at her, was shaking slightly. It's no wonder she reacts so intensely. When encountering this kind of situation that seems to be fascinated by X, any woman will be emotional, not to mention that from yesterday's contact, she is definitely a fierce personality and full of thorns. But I heard that before American women like to do it in their own bed, and have never understood the reason, but now I see a possible reason it is not good to do it. Not only is it easy to drive people away, and you don't have to go by yourself, but if you can't drive away, you can also get a gun directly from under the bed. Come out. Am I in charge of my sight? Charlotte shook his head. The situation in front of him was very tense, but he was very nervous and didn't take it to heart. Instead, he recalled the scene of last night. Sally was indeed drunk last night, and she did throw up Charlotte. And Charlotte did send her back to the apartment she rented under her drunken guidance. However, it was not the few cups of eggnog that made the girl who had a good drink but a good amount of alcohol got drunk, but the hymenone. That's right, hymenone, known as the leg-legging agent, is a holy product for picking up girls in bars, and a favorite of rogue satyrs. Although Charlotte didn't know how this thing got into her pocket, she couldn't escape her predecessor's pot if she wanted to. Especially when you can recognize what it is when you touch it, and when you secretly drug Sally's eggnog, you have never done it before but are extremely skillful. Can only sigh, the former real old driver too. However, this thing is notorious, although in the era before Charlotte passed through. But theoretically speaking, in the United States in the early 1990s, where guns and marijuana were legally owned, it was not illegal to use this thing, at least not for its own use. Of course, secretly drugging other girls in wine is another point. As for why I did this, it wasn't because I couldn't hold back any other reasons. If there is really such a strong demand, he won't be able to build a spell house for a few years. Don't blame me, it's all for your good. When it took a lot of effort to put the fascinated Sally on the bed, Charlotte wiped the girl's vomit on her clothes with disgust. While being so unconscious about the girl, she also explained her own conscience. NS. Wait, something is wrong ba ba ba. This is completely the line of the villain. After thinking of the source of what he said just now, Charlotte became even more discouraged. In fact, what he is doing now is indeed like a villain in a third-rate novel. If it is really a novel, maybe someone should come to the hero next. Save the beauty. Of course, except for the novels of dark abuse. Then, do you want to stop here? Substituting Huang Mao unconsciously, bah, no, it's Charlotte from the villain's perspective, muttering to herself, but in a blink of an eye, this joke-like idea is forgotten. What's a joke? It took several years, and even this kind of small probability event came across, and finally saw the light. How could it be possible to stop at the door? Charlotte stared feverishly at the girl's beautiful carcass, which was only hidden by her underwear, and her hands could not help shaking with excitement. It was like a satyr who had caught a good prey and was about to feast on it. The irony is that if it is seen by outsiders, the current situation is indeed like that. I don't know if it will work this time. Charlotte took a deep breath, controlled the trembling hands, and crossed over to pinch the magic technique for the second time. The night gave me black eyes, but I use them to find light. Is not a traditional Taoist mantra such as anxiety as a law, nor is it a esoteric famous saying such as the world is inhumane and everything is a dog, but just such a poem. Originally, according to the old ghost who taught Charlotte's spells, he chanted the spell when casting the spell, excluding those that were said to the ghosts and gods if they were really interested in listening. The rest was only used to strengthen their will and focus spirit, so that the spelling goes smoothly. To put it simply, the spell is actually for yourself, and the content of what you say is not important. The key is to concentrate your mind and believe that the spell will be successful when you say it. It's just self-hypnosis at all. Charlotte, who has studied modern scientific knowledge, directly understood this as hypnotism. In order to be able to cast spells, he even personally learned from some psychologists, although it is not up to the exaggeration of hypnotizing others to do what they do, it is still a small achievement. However, in the Dharma ending era before crossing over, the aura of heaven and earth was extremely thin. Even if he succeeded in self-hypnosis, he could only succeed once or twice in 100 times with a simple spell, and he and the old among the spells learned by ghosts, the simpler ones are all related to ghosts and gods. In the kingdom that has defeated all monsters, ghosts, and snakes, even if such spells are used, what can they do? I don't even have a place to see the effect. Even if the house is prepared, the car is beautiful, and the ticket is many, if there is no girl, it is impossible to give birth to a child. However, this time Charlotte's spell cast was exceptionally smooth. Although the aura of 1993 is not much richer than the era before he traveled, there seems to be a force in the dark to guide him, so that he can use the thin aura to firmly grasp the past. The ethereal feeling. Come. Charlotte pointed to the girl's forehead lying on the bed, and then gently let it go. This time he deliberately changed the spell to English, hoping to attract the attention of the girl and the things that left the girl with a strong scent of ghosts. After all, girls are Westerners, and 80% of the language used subconsciously is English. Rise! With this shout, the girl who had been unconscious suddenly frowned, and a painful expression gradually appeared on her pretty face, and this pain, in just a few seconds, quickly turned into a hideous change. What? The girl who had been unconscious suddenly yelled, her body convulsed sharply, like a live fish out of the water. The next moment, she sat up all of a sudden. Here, where is it? The girl's voice was hoarse, her eyes were blank, her beautiful green eyes had dilated pupils without focus, as if she was looking at some distant place, and as if she was blind who could not see anything. This is the hospital, miss. It was clearly in Sally's bedroom, but Charlotte was talking nonsense seriously, as if the woman in front of him was not Sally, and they were really in the hospital. Yes. The girl seems to really believe what Charlotte said, forget who she is, and forget that this is the apartment she rented. Why am I in the hospital? What happened? She shook her head, seeming to be very confused, and the attractive blonde hair also looked dull at this time. You were drunk and hurt. Seeing that the other party's reaction was exactly as he expected, Charlotte felt ecstasy. This proved that his spell really worked, but knowing that it was important, he suppressed his joy in time and continued calmly. This is Dr. House, your attending doctor. How are you feeling now? Feeling? It hurts. The girl frowned her brows, as if she was holding back the pain. It's like all the bones in the whole body are broken. Doctor, am I going to die? No, it's just normal pain. You can feel the pain, which is the proof that there is no major problem in the body. Dead don't feel the pain, do they? Charlotte comforted the girl like a real doctor, except that when he said the dead don't feel pain, the corners of his mouth showed an inadvertent ironic smile. However, the smile faded quickly, and he asked casually and intentionally, by the way, miss, can you tell me your full name again? Because you were unconscious when you were admitted to the hospital, we still have some procedures to complete. All right. The girl hesitated for a while, as if she couldn't remember her name. She waited for a long time before she said slowly, my name is Alexis Rachel Hayden. As the name spit out from her mouth, the girl's expression suddenly shocked, and then she repeated her name as if she had been possessed. Alexis. My name is Alexis. I am Alexis. I am Alexis. I'm sleep. Seeing that the girl's expression became more and more mad, as if some dangerous change was about to happen, Charlotte made a decisive decision, pinched the magic trick again, and pointed to her forehead. The girl's voice suddenly stopped like a radio that was powered off. She fell on the bed softly, just like when she was drunk before. Is this really the video of me last night? Seeing the woman who was exactly like herself in the video said something she couldn't imagine, Sally was surprised. Is it true that the man in front of me who was stunned by himself is true? God, if this is a nightmare, please wake me up. The false believer who had never been in a church for more than 10 years couldn't help but pray. However, like cowboys, God is very busy and naturally has no time to respond to the prayers of a hypocrite. Why does Petunia meet at most 4 geeks, but I have to meet you, this kind of? Sally shook her head angrily, feeling angry that she could not find a suitable adjective. What is this? Charlotte didn't care about Sally's anger at all. If you use the movie analogy, the current situation should be similar to Science Ghostbusters, right? As an actor, shouldn't it be cool to be able to experience the plot in the movie firsthand? Cool? I feel cold all over. Sally looked at Charlotte coldly. Compared to Science Ghostbusters, I think the situation now is more like Children in the Cornfield. Stephen King's one. You know. Sally was surprised that Charlotte knew the movie she was talking about. The original work of this film is indeed a novel by Stephen King, but compared to the famous Carrie Witch, this novel is rather inconspicuous in the almost equal-length work collection of the great writer. At least she would never know the name if she hadn't happened to participate in the audition for Child in the Cornfield 3. By the way, even though the audition was only a small role, there was no news after so long, so I guess it's out of play. If it is usual, Sally will be depressed for a while if she realizes that the audition has failed, but this time, in the face of the more shocking and strange reality, she has no such mood at all. But speaking of it, it seems that in many thriller horror movies, guns are useless except when they are about to end. It may be that she remembered the situation when Sally was pointed with a gun just now. Charlotte unexpectedly brought up such a topic that only cute fans would discuss. Although Sally was not interested, he was also distracted by him. Not necessarily. The blonde girl responded casually, in many horror movies, don't they use guns for accidentally hurting family and friends and suicide? Yet, this is the real purpose of the Constitution that allows us to hold guns legally, killing our own family and then committing suicide, isn't it? Sally can only be speechless for such remarks that, in the Hoover era, it is likely that the FBI will send FedEx to the door. However, many times, Guns are really useless. She couldn't help but remember the scene just now. Obviously it was herself who pointed the gun at the other party, but Sally felt that she was the weaker side. She looked at the man in front of her who had saved herself and was probably fascinated by herself, but the right hand with the gun was unconsciously trembling. Shoot! Sally! The man in front of you is a liar. He did to you what you hate the most. Didn't you swear to your mother? You must protect yourself. The girl said to herself. Her finger was on the trigger of the pistol, but she couldn't pull it anyway, as if the trigger was extremely heavy. She couldn't help but resurface the situation from then, although you can probably guess why you are so excited. The man's calm voice sounded, pulling Sally back from the memory, but I have to tell you, things are not what you think they are. Do you still believe you when I am? Believe it or not. But if you didn't do it last night, don't you feel it at all? This. Although there is only underwear left on her body, it really doesn't look like she took it off and put it on again, and the lower body really doesn't feel strange, but... Of course, I admit that you were not naturally drunk last night, I gave you medicine. Charlotte calmly confessed his crimes, as if discussing what to eat for breakfast for a while. It's Hymenone. It is said that if you take the right amount, your susceptibility will increase a lot when you do it. I don't know if it is true. You. Sally wanted to pull the trigger in her hand more and more. However, the other party clearly did something bad, but she was still calm and natural, as if she was saving the world, but the girl couldn't help but want to listen to him. There is a reason why I want to do this. Do you remember what I said to you when we first met in the hospital yesterday? What kind of nonsense about me being haunted by ghosts? Yes. But those are not nonsense. The man's eyes are facing Sally's, as if he wants to convince her through his eyes, that is true. What? If you don't believe me, just look at this first. Before Sally wanted to say anything, Charlotte stuffed a videotape into her hands. Time back to now. Even if this videotape is real, but you want me to believe. Sally stopped in the middle of speaking, because I didn't know how to describe it, and it took a long time to continue. I don't know if I should believe you now. By the way, can you tell me how this videotape came from? Videotape, this is not your yesterday. Sally interrupted the other party's answer with a gesture. I know this. I'm not asking about the content of the tape, but the tape itself. This is your own home, I just borrowed it. Sure enough. As an actor who has just transformed from a model, her acting skills can only be described as terrible. She knows this, and she doesn't think there is anything wrong with it. However, she also knows that to gain a foothold in Hollywood, beauty alone is not enough. Every year the beautiful girl who goes to the City of Angels to pursue star dreams is unknown. She will definitely not be the most beautiful among them, not to mention even the most beautiful. She may not be able to get out of the mix, so she still has to try to improve her acting skills. Before, she bought a home video recorder according to some senior introductions to record her performance during practice for later research. However, she soon discovered that this was a stupid thing, is not because it is useless. On the contrary, through watching the video, she found countless problems in her performance. However, she has no idea how to improve. Although it was not that she had not taken a special acting class, when she actually performed, she felt as rigid as a robot, completely returning what she had learned to the teacher. So, that video recorder soon became the most expensive piece of furnishings in Sally's family. Although she felt very sorry, she couldn't handle it for a while. Unexpectedly, it was used by Charlotte today. Which corner did you find the recorder from? Actually, because she just lost her role and didn't get paid, Sally was still trying to find the video recorder and sell it in exchange for some living expenses. But thanks to her daily habit of throwing things away, she couldn't find it. You vomited yourself last night. In order to replace it for you, I looked through your closet. Charlotte answered Sally's question seriously, but there was a smirk on her face. As a result, although you didn't find any clean clothes for you to change, you accidentally found this under the pile of dirty clothes. He pointed to the video recorder. The layout of your home really opened my eyes and completely refreshed my understanding of women. Less wordy. Can't women be sloppy? Even Sally, when faced with this kind of ridicule, her complexion is flushed and her confidence is a little lacking. This is good for me. You haven't met my friend Petunia, her family. Hey! Birds of a feather flock together. This is also one of the reasons why she and Petunia can become friends. Relying on the wonderful performance of selling teammates at critical moments, Sally finally ended this embarrassing topic. Originally, she wanted to condemn the other party's behavior of turning over her own things, but now she can't say it. So, after you turned to the video recorder, did you think of recording the evidence for me to see? Yes. Then what if you don't have this? You originally planned to do it either. Original. Charlotte tilted her head and thought. Broke in. What? This answer was absolutely beyond Sally's expectation, but the other party thought she did not understand, so he continued to add, I originally planned to leave secretly after carefully confirming whether you really have the breath of ghosts on your body. I expected you to wake up in the morning to be troublesome, but I didn't expect it to be so troublesome. As he said, he glanced at the gun still held by Sally. This is just a momentary excitement. Sally put away the pistol as she talked. She did believe what Charlotte said. I won't actually shoot. Or rather, I can't fire a shot. She added silently in her heart. Then, what's the matter with your so-called buggering? Are you not a demon hunter? The demon hunter. Charlotte raised her brows. You watched too many fantasy movies. What? I said, I'm just curious about your situation, I just want to see it. Charlotte's words are full of malice, seeming to be the uncomfortable being pointed at by a gun before venting. I didn't say I would solve the problem for you, did I? This. When he said this, Sally believed a little bit more, but in this way, things got into trouble. The man in front of him should be the only person Sally knew who had this knowledge. If he doesn't help, Sally who did go to help herself get rid of the possessed evil spirit that she saw on the videotape just now? It's not a good thing to just listen to the evil spirit, especially the other party said before. That's the time Sally thought he was talking nonsense in the hospital. Even the previous suicide by himself was probably caused by the evil spirit. Ghost. Thinking back to the video I saw just now, Sally couldn't help feeling cold all over. You have this ability, isn't it just to help people like me? Toong Tu Simple's girl finally decided to know her affection and move her to reason. Isn't it said that the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility? Do you believe this kind of tricks used to deceive children? The other party looked at Sally with a look of your IQ is in arrears, please renew as soon as possible. The kid who said this, his adoptive father died, and his girlfriend almost ran away with someone. He was so tired every day, but he could only work part-time in the magazine. Okay. My fault. Sally, who didn't believe in this nonsense, confessed her mistake without waiting for the other person to finish. Speak straight. How can you help me? Help you? Charlotte's mouth was turned up, like a wolf that had caught a fat sheep. It's easy, pay for it. Well, I accidentally wrote a very S, so I had to write here PS1, the title movie famous videotape in this chapter is a horror film, nothing too special, you can check it out if you want to watch it. Actually, I wanted to use another Cameron Diaz movie as the name, but it was not suitable. Can you guess what the movie is called? This is question 1 of this chapter, PS2, the answer to the question in the previous chapter Castle in the Book of Spirits, the actor is Nathan Fillion. This man also played Firefly. www.mtlnovel.com. Wallace Book also wrote, PS3, the reason why I don't write the Chinese translation of Castle is because when I write the Chinese name, I think of Ying Kong Shi. PS4, like cowboys, God is very busy. Jay Chu's song, Cowboys Are Very Busy. PS5, Petunia in The Big Bang Theory beats soy sauce again, and by the way, she brought the four of them with Chatty. As mentioned earlier, Petunia is a real person in this book and is Sally's friend. PS6, Science Ghostbusters is a well-known film in the 1980s in the United States, suitable for geek to watch. In The Big Bang Theory, Chatty and others have watched it several times. PS7, The Child in the Cornfield is a work by Stephen King, and several films were made after it was adapted into a movie. The starring role in the second part seems to be the ex-wife of Caution, not the one with the little golden man, Linda Hamilton. She is also the heroine of Terminator 2, PS8, in other words, Caution is also a winner in life. Not to mention personal achievements, and the achievements of women who have worked with them are not small. In this regard, in recent years, Pitt can probably be compared with him. PS9, Witch Carrie is Stephen King's famous work. The original movie is very famous, and the remake version is generally evaluated. However, the leading role is that everyone likes it, but it is no longer regarded as the little Laurie Chloe Moretz. PS10, Hoover, the legendary FBI seat, everyone should know. This gentleman hates red, and it is no joke that he will be checked the water meter when he talks nonsense. PS11, who is the unfortunate one who says the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility at the end, do you all know? PS12, Big Wolf who caught the fat sheep, I am the real ending character. So, your full name is Charlize? Charlize Theron. Looking at the debt statement in her hand, Charlotte couldn't help feeling like she was lying down. Yes, isn't the full name written on the debt statement? Is there any problem? Sally, no. Charlize Theron can't understand Charlotte's surprise. That Sally is abbreviation. Charlize rolled his eyes. All right. It feels like going to Dobeo to buy a pack of toilet paper, and it turns out that the store's ID photo skeleton is surprised, especially like an alien. Charlotte does know that there will be an actress named Charlize Theron in Hollywood in the future, but because I haven't seen the other party's film, I really don't know her appearance. Therefore, he couldn't be sure whether the Charlize in front of him was the one. In short, do business first. Let us start. Will probably be the signature of a future star, and tucked it into his pocket. Charlotte's face immediately became serious. In addition to the lack of a sighing and beard, he was quite like the exorcist Master Van Helsing. However, in his mind and body, in addition to the slight feeling of humiliation that still exists, he couldn't help but want to laugh with Sally. No, Charlize's collection of money is actually not his purpose. Even if she will really become a big star in the future, this girl is just an actor who hasn't made her debut yet. Even if she really wants to scrape money, how much can she scrape from her body? Charlotte asked her to pay, only to continue to deepen her trust in herself in the opposite direction. People are sometimes weird. When he does not believe you, what you do for him will worry that you want to cheat him money, and he will be suspicious of what you say, and when he believes you, if you don't ask him for money, he will doubt it, because he is worried that if you don't want money, you might want something more precious. Charlotte is no stranger to people with this mentality. When the old ghost taught him spells, he once asked him to set up a stall in front of the hospital. The target was those middle-aged men who had just come out of the hospital with a blue complexion and some size. Brand. Isn't it responsive? At the time, he thought it was the old ghost who made a typo, but he was ruthlessly despised by the other party. Fool. People are ghosts these days. If you make a responsive sign, the fool knows that you are going to swindle money, so who will care for you? But if there is a request to write, maybe others think it is a mistake, and treat me as an illiterate. It's better to be laughed at as an illiterate, than to be completely unwilling to talk to you. To cheat, the first thing to do is to attract people's attention and talk to them. But why should I lie? Obviously there are real spells. Do you use it? The old ghosts hate that iron can't make steel. Furthermore, do you think that spell suppression is enough to deal with those monsters and ghosts? Is not it? At that time, Charlotte had just started to learn spells from the old ghost. Too simple. Of course not. The old ghost is going to explode. This is not a description. Because it is a ghost, there is no entity. When the old ghost gets angry, the gaseous body will really explode after swelling like the literal meaning. Of course, it can be recovered immediately afterwards without any adverse effects. According to the old ghost, the original description of explosive was created after someone had seen the ghost's reaction with their own eyes. You know spells, but others don't? When it comes time to use spells, 80% of your opponents are monsters or evil spirits. They are naturally capable of spells. You can fight them with spells. Isn't it said that people practice faster than demons and ghosts? Charlotte muttered unconvincedly. Unexpectedly, when the old ghost heard it, he really exploded with a boom, and the explosion blasted him directly. Where did you hear this idiot statement? The old ghost quickly gathered together and continued to reprimand his apprentice. Net, online novel. Do you know why in the past fairy tales, those beautiful female ghosts and monsters like to marry poor scholars? Why? Because those stories were originally used by the poor scholars. You said the same thing. In this era of the end, you humans have a lot of difficulty in learning spells. How could it be faster than the ghosts and monsters who were born to master the spells? The old ghost sneered. The power of the human body is never stronger than the beast. Similarly, it is not magic that humans can surrender to ghosts and monsters. Spells are only means, and it is here that really makes a difference. He pointed to Charlotte's head. Ghosts do not have physical bodies, so naturally they have no brains. Monsters are born with brains that are not smart enough. Even old monsters are only at a level with normal people. They are very easy to get caught in the face of human deception and scams. Actually above, since ancient times, humans have always used these methods to catch ghosts and exorcise demons. If you don't believe me, think about how Song Dingbo catches ghosts. Those legends in the past, although many of them belong to sour literature, but the content is not completely fabricated. It turned out to be like this. The old ghost's statement did disillusion Charlotte's vision of spells, but he was not the kind of second-year young man who believed that power is everything. He wanted to learn spells more out of pure interest, so he soon recovered. Come here. Even more, because of what the old ghost said, he became more interested in this weird spell. So, you asked me to set up a stall near the hospital just to learn how to deceive people. That's right. If you can deceive people, you can also deceive demons and ghosts, so that you have the chance to use the spells after you learn it. Seeing Charlotte's opening up, the old ghost's attitude also eased down, even a little bit of a tempting sign. The reason why young men are selected is that men are always dissatisfied with their abilities in that aspect. When a person reaches middle age, his physical function declines, and this situation is more common. Even if he has no physical problems, he pursues better. He will subconsciously approve of his desire. In addition to those who come out of the hospital, who doesn't have a headache or annoyance, you just need to use this to talk to him, and then. Under the guidance of the old ghost, Charlotte quickly mastered the essence of wanting to play, and even became a master in some populations, although this master was difficult to use even a spell. It was still too young at that time. Recovering from the past, Charlotte can't help but sigh that time is a slaughter of pigs, and she has turned herself into a master of trickery, who had tried to lie in the first place. But looking at the victim in front of him, he couldn't help becoming serious again. To deceive people is to gain trust, so that we can better cast spells. This is ironic, but now, I can finally cast spells. He has a bit of emotion in his heart, who has not forgotten his original intention. Of course, the most important thing now is to further win the trust of the girl in front of him, so that he can use the latter means. For this reason, he decided to reveal more things to the girl. When you committed suicide last time, I actually noticed your problem, but I couldn't confirm it. I wanted to confirm with you, but I didn't expect to catch up with the result he pointed to his head, which was still attached to the gauze, and saw Charlize smile a little embarrassedly before continuing. However, with this, I also made sure that you were indeed haunted by a grudge, so as soon as I recovered from the short-term memory loss caused by the concussion, I immediately told you about it. Of course, this is all fake, Charlotte said so only to gain the girl's trust further. He hadn't penetrated into his current body at that time, how could he know what his predecessor was thinking? However, a man walks with a beautiful girl who is drunk in the middle of the night. It always feels like he is not at ease. Fortunately, he finally made the right choice, and this is where Charlotte is now. Later, because you didn't want to believe it, I had to lie to you to drink the drug and talk directly with the grudge that entangled you, so there was this videotape you saw. This is incredible. Charlize was holding his forehead and seemed to have a headache. But why? Why does your so-called grudge entangle me? Romeo, why are you Romeo? Charlotte cites Shakespeare's famous tragedy improperly, but Charlize gives him a glare, and has to continue. Many times, ghosts entangle people for no reason. But as for you this time, there are indeed some reasons. Speaking of this, Charlotte paused, looking for a suitable example to compare to Charlize, who doesn't know much about ghosts and spirits. Have you heard of water ghosts? Water ghosts? Is it the kind of ghost that exists in the water and will grab the feet of swimmers and drag them to the bottom of the water to drown? Water ghosts are relatively common in ghost stories from the East and the West. Charlize knew something about it, as Charlotte expected, which allowed him to take the opportunity to talk about it, although many people think that water ghosts are the products of people who are entangled in water weeds while swimming, and they are imaginary, but in fact this kind of ghost does exist. This kind of ghost, in essence, is the same as the grieving ghost that entangles you now. The same thing. Same? Does it mean that they are the same and kill people? Let's count this too. Charlotte nodded, but the biggest thing in common, Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com, is that these two kinds of ghosts are constantly repeating the moment of their own death on someone else's body. The original water ghost may indeed be entangled in water weeds and drowned. Therefore, it repeats this way of death on others. Even if many people encounter real water ghosts, as long as they can escape the danger, they will often subconsciously think of it as aquatic plants. For this reason they imitate the aquatic plants too much. In the past, what people thought of as water ghosts was actually just aquatic plants, but when science developed and everyone believed that it was just aquatic plants, you told me that it might really be a water ghost? The water ghost deliberately makes people misunderstand that it is water weed. Charlize muttered to himself, feeling that his brain was not enough. Common sense and three views were gradually broken by Charlotte's strange explanation, which made her very uncomfortable. It was as if she suddenly discovered that the sun was black, and the angel's wings were actually bat wings, and there were roots behind her buttocks. The tail of the triangle is the same. According to you, the grudge who entangled me, bewitched me to commit suicide when I was drunk, is actually because she died like that in the first place. Probably. Charlotte nodded her head, and recognized Charlize's inference. I suspect that the resentful ghost named Alexis, she not only committed suicide, but is very likely to be like you. After getting drunk, she jumped off the pedestrian bridge and fell to her death. The following is the author's nonsense. In fact, Sally is Theron. There are many hints and even explicit statements in the previous chapters, including the cider house, the child in the cornfield 3 and so on. Readers who are more familiar with this aspect may have noticed it a long time ago. Alexis? I remember the name. Bartender Campbell tried to remember while wiping the glass. She is a frequent visitor here. I heard that she is an actor, but committed suicide 2 years ago. You committed suicide? Campbell's answer was not affirmative, but she sturdily frightened Charlize. She resisted the fear in her heart and pretended to regret it indifferently. God, why did you make this choice? How can you give up your life so easily? Yes. Why? Campbell also seemed to have aroused thoughts in his heart by Charlize's words. He gently put down the wine glass that had been wiped for a long time, and sighed. I vaguely remember that she wore a red coat that day, which was very attractive. Many men approached her in the past, but she ignored her, just sitting there alone, drinking whiskey glass after glass. That's right. Is where you were drunk last time. Go on, where was the last time? Hearing this, Charlize could hardly conceal his fear. Is it last night? No, it was the day before yesterday. Speaking of which, you were drunk for 2 days in a row. Is there anything wrong with you? Seeing that Charlize did not answer, Campbell picked up the wine glass and continued to wipe it. Actually, I couldn't remember the things that happened so long ago. It's just that the way you gave me that night is very similar to her back then. Ah, I'm sorry. Realizing that his statement was very bad, Campbell hurriedly apologized to Charlize, but the girl who was shocked had no intention of paying attention to this, that Alexis really committed suicide after leaving this bar, and was sitting where I was sitting before the accident. A sense of horror rose in Charlize's heart. All this is a coincidence. No, is this really a coincidence? At first, she was a little doubtful about Charlotte's words. The video that the other party showed her was recorded while she suspected that she was hypnotized by the other party. Therefore, when the other party suggested that she come to the cider house to ask if anyone knew the so-called Alexis, she agreed without hesitation. In her opinion, temporarily leaving the other party's sphere of influence would help her clarify your thoughts and expose this possible scam. However, the current investigation results gave her a heavy and terrifying blow. Should I leave this bar as soon as possible? I always feel like staying in it and getting cold. Although he understands that this is a psychological effect, Charlize can hardly control himself not to be afraid. This is not the horrible but remote story in the movie, but it really happened in the girl's life. Becoming the heroine of this kind of movie is worth celebrating, but if you get involved in such a weird thing in real life. Charlize involuntarily fought a cold war. At this time, she noticed that she had left the bar and was walking on the side of the street unconsciously, and not far in front of her, was the flyover where she had committed suicide before, and at the same time the bartender Camel's Mouth, that Eric, the place where Sith committed suicide. Is it here? Before the shock in Charlize's heart turned into fear, she was deprived of her attention by a somewhat familiar voice. Charlotte Booth was holding her shoulders, standing aside, looking at her with playful eyes. Before, after discussing with Charlize, the blonde girl went to the cider house to ask about Alexis, and Charlotte left the blonde girl's house. On the surface, the excuse is to prepare some props for ghost hunting and exorcism, but in reality it is quite the opposite. After he came out of the apartment where the girl was renting, he just turned a corner and hit it. He was not far behind until the girl came out. Although his skills in tracing the tail line are very average, Charlize was upset all the way because of what he had experienced before. He didn't pay attention to his surroundings at all, and naturally he would not be spotted. She really went to the bar yesterday instead of calling 911. It seems that she really believed what I said. Charlotte left deliberately, of course, has her own purpose, but at the same time, it is also to give the girl a buffer time to sort out her thoughts. To his comfort, the girl finally chose to believe him, of course, even if the girl made the opposite choice and called 911 to call the police, because he had already left. The police could not catch him. The cunning rabbit still has 3 caves, which he used to be. Master, how can liars not keep a few backs? If everything goes well, you will soon be able to catch ghosts and exorcise evil spirits. But, can I really do it? Although he showed himself like a master in front of Charlize, Charlotte knew that it was only the result of the training of the old ghost. In the face of ghosts, although he has very rich theoretical knowledge, given the situation before the crossing, he has never practiced it once. This is the same as if you have taken the lessons of many teachers. If you haven't come in person, you are still a first-time brother. Charlotte's mood is actually quite similar now. excited, nervous, full of expectation and anxiety. What should I do? Although through previous contact, it can be judged that the Alexis who is entangled in Charlize is not a magical monster, but just a female ghost who is not deep. Maybe he didn't even realize that he had died and turned into a ghost. But the problem is that although I can use spells since I have traveled to this era, I am just starting to practice in essence, and many tricks cannot be used due to lack of mana. It seems like the old ghost said it really has to be tricked. Made up his mind, Charlotte still followed Charlize until he came to the place of the last incident, the place where Alexis died. Is it the same place as you last time? Faced with the haunting Charlotte, Charlize was very uncomfortable for a while. She was stunned for a long time before reacting. About 2 years ago, Campbell, the bartender at the cider house, told me. Is she an actress? How did you know? Because this kind of ghost, like a water ghost, always likes to entangle people who are in a similar situation to the self before death. In order to strengthen Charlize's trust in herself and facilitate future actions, Charlotte explained patiently. You were possessed by her that night because you lost your role and got drunk, which gave her a chance. But think about it the other way around. Every night, there are countless drunks on the streets of Los Angeles, both men and women. Why did she choose you alone? Because you have similarities. You mean, because that Alexis is also an actor, so he chose me as a possessive object of the same profession? But is it only that? There are so many actresses in Hollywood. Could it be that she would commit suicide and also like me? Is it because the development is not going well? Following Charlotte's logic, Charlize also drew an inference that made her very unhappy. Almost. An actor will commit suicide. It is basically either depression or poor development. Depression is basically the death of a big star. This Alexis is unknown, so it can be ruled out. The rest, naturally, it's just not developing smoothly. Charlotte sighed and gave Charlize a complicated look. Like you, there are many girls who come to Hollywood from all over the world and hope to become famous overnight. Most of them are unknown until the end. They can only watch their fanghua pass in vain. This feeling of putting a lot of effort into nothing, makes people are suffocated mentally and die. On the road of pursuing ideals and success, there are countless corpses of such losers. The difference is that some people are still alive and just become walking corpses, while some people are really turned into a corpse. So she attached to me when I was drunk because of losing the role. Is it because she was sick with me? Charlize bit his pink lips unwillingly, almost biting blood. Does she believe that I, like her, is a loser who can't hold on? A ghost of that level can't think of a confirm. Charlotte knew why the girl in front of him was unwilling to do things, but he had no choice but to continue to explain. The ability is not enhanced to a certain degree. Ghosts can have spells, memories, murder, destruction, but they can't think or recognize, because they have no brains. He tapped his head, which was still attached to the gauze, with his fingers. Without this, naturally there is no way to think, no way to judge. Ghosts of this degree are just a vague mental body, they can only feel vaguely. As long as there is enough dark emotions to attract, they will appear. So, to be precise, Sally, it was not Alexis who chose you, but you. You chose Alexis. Charlotte's words hit Charlize's heart with a heavy hammer, her blood rushed to her face, and her head buzzed, wanting to refute, but she didn't know how to speak. Seeing her pitiful appearance, Charlotte sighed, but didn't let her go. Actually, the memory of a ghost of this level Alexis is also very confusing. In the case of temporary possession, she can't do anything that violates the will of the possessed. She can only enlarge it. A certain emotion of the possessed person, through the possessed person's brain, creates enough. Charlize interrupted Charlotte's chatter with a scream. The loudness of the voice shocked some people who were passing by in a hurry. However, seeing Charlize's sharp expression as if he were about to kill, they all wisely chose to continue their own way. But Charlize didn't care about it. She looked at Charlotte resentfully, at this who was mercilessly uncovering her scars, "Yet, as you said, the decision to commit suicide was originally made by myself. I am weak and I have no talent. I am afraid that I will remain anonymous for the rest of my life. I am afraid, I don't have the courage to go with that. All acting skills are better than my competition. I want to cheat, I want to lick the bastards, but I don't have the courage to take off my clothes in the locker room. I always wanted to commit suicide, but I didn't dare to admit it, so I had to pass the blame to the Alexis who didn't know whether it existed. This gave you the chance to laugh at me. I. Do you regret it?" Charlotte did not comfort Charlize, who was already a little hysterical and was about to collapse. He just quietly looked at the blonde girl with red eyes and was about to cry, and asked quietly, "Do you regret it? Do you regret being an actor? No matter why you became an actor in the first place, do you regret that you have taken this path now?" "Me? There are countless setbacks waiting for us throughout a human life. If we fall down once, the only way is to get up again and continue to walk on this muddy puddle of life until we can't get up again." "Then, are you still getting up now, Charlize Theron? If you get up, stand up straight and don't get down." Charlotte stared at Charlize ferociously. "To defeat Alexis is to defeat your own weakness. Are you willing to fight again?" I do." It was obvious that a man who had just met a few times gave him a severe lesson, but a warm current rose in Charlize's heart. She squeezed her nose, resisted the soreness of her eyes, did not cry, "Although it sounds like a fool, although you may be a liar, I'm still willing to give it a try." "Yes." Charlotte laughed suddenly and looked very happy. "The most important condition for exorcising ghosts is there," said. He smirked again. "Unfortunately, this Edo is not the time." Charlize's face turned red all of a sudden. Charlotte will take the initiative to stimulate Charlize, not for fun, not to be a life mentor, to pour some life chicken soup. Everything he does is actually to fulfill his promise to the blonde girl to catch ghosts for her, get rid of that Alexis. As the saying goes, suspicion gives rise to dark ghosts. People will be entangled by ghosts and evil things, mostly because of the influence of the dark side of their hearts. The magic stick said that there is no way to blessings and evils, and people incur themselves. Like Charlize, the reason why she was entangled by Alexis, as they analyzed, is because after Charlize was frustrated, her inner depression and feelings of loss caused Alexis. The vibes of this was possessed, triggering a series of events later. Therefore, to get rid of Alexis, the most important thing is to get rid of the negative emotions in Charlize first. It is better to draw salaries from the bottom of the tank. Without the support of negative emotions, ghosts of this level will lose most of their power and become much easier to deal with. Actually, if you do it like this, even if you leave it alone, maybe Charlize will not have any problems. After all, Alexis is not a vicious ghost. When the girl has overcome her own negative emotions, she should not be able to get up easily. After a long time, it will naturally slowly dissipate. However, Charlotte didn't want to go so easily. On the one hand, he felt that the gloom deep in Charlize's heart, which could attract ghosts to the upper body, might not only show it a little bit, but he couldn't go deeper if he spoke shallowly. Therefore, just in case, it is safer to do an expulsion altogether. On the other hand, although he has rich theoretical experience, he has never practiced it once. Now that such a good opportunity is in front of him, how can he let it go? Always feel like you are very excited. Charlize looked at Charlotte, who was busy, and suddenly felt a little puzzled. It was already night at this time. After that, they went to the nearby police station again to further confirm the matter about Alexis. Although it is impossible to say that it is to exorcise ghosts that would definitely be driven out as a troublesome snake spirit, but for Charlotte, who was once a master, lying and deceiving people are really not a problem. They easily got the information about Alexis from there, although it is not detailed, but it does prove Charlotte's series of speculations. So, after making a series of preparations separately, they returned to Charlize's home again. "What are you doing?" In Charlize's bedroom, Charlotte first sprinkled some newly bought salt around in view of Charlize's financial situation. The purchase of similar props were all Charlotte's pockets, and then he asked Charlize to stand. At the bedside, she drew a circle with pure white salt. In many legends in the East and the West, salt is a holy thing that can be used to exorcise evil spirits. In fact, it may not be without cause. Salt can indeed be used to exorcise evil, although it is of little use. While explaining, Charlotte continued to sprinkle salt. Salt's exorcism power is very small, and it can almost affect the newly born weak evil creatures. Even a ghost like Alexis, which is not powerful by calculation, is actually not afraid of it. However, although it is effective, it is small, but salt is a very suitable indicator, just like litmus turns blue when it encounters alkali. As long as there are evil things nearby, then the salt sprinkled with a special method will immediately react. What's the reaction? Although she was still afraid and suspicious, Charlotte's words revealed a new world in front of Charlize, and she couldn't help but be a little curious. It will become messy. Simply put, I slowly retreat while sprinkling salt. According to common sense, the falling salt should form a line that is close to a straight line, but once there are ghosts and evil things nearby, the salt will not be completely spilled. Following the action of gravity and air resistance, a large-scale deviation will occur, and the formed lines will be very messy, just like now. Said, he pointed to the ground. Charlize took a look with his fingers and couldn't help taking a breath. The refined salt that Charlotte sprinkled around Charlize, according to his course of action and actions, should have formed an irregular circle, but now it seems that Charlize's feet are radiating light. The pattern of the sun. Many small salt grains did not fall with gravity, but as if they were thrown far away under the action of an invisible force, forming one after another on the periphery of the circle rays. Why is this so? Although this strange sight made Charlize more and more scared, she was a little fascinated by the strange psychology of women, and her curiosity became more and more vigorous. Have you ever been bitten by a mosquito? Mosquitoes are annoying, right? Charlotte was a little bit unreasonable. Of course. A ghost feels about salt the same way you feel about mosquitoes, although it doesn't make a big impact, but it's very annoying. And annoying then, when you are harassed and bitten by nasty mosquitoes, what will you have subconsciously? What about the reaction? Slap or wave away? Right. Charlotte nodded. Similarly, when ghosts face the tiny salt grains they hate and are bored like mosquitoes, even if they do not respond intentionally, they will naturally react instinctively, which is the so-called poltergeist. The weight of the salt grain is very light. Even if the poltergeist is only slightly disturbed, its falling trajectory will be greatly deviated, so there is the current picture. I see. Charlize nodded and suddenly realized a problem. Wait. Now, based on the falling trajectory of the salt grains, can it be explained that all your so-called poltergeists are centered on me? That doesn't mean that's right. Charlotte nodded. This means that Alexis has always been attached to you. But if that's the case, why don't I feel it at all? Because, as I said before, Alexis is not a powerful ghost. Charlotte took out the broom and began to clean the salt he sprinkled on the floor. It doesn't even have a sober consciousness all the time. Most of the time, it is just a chaotic mental body, only possessing instincts like a poltergeist. Only when you have enough negative emotions will it be activated when you are attached to you. Become a conscious her, and only when you are basically unconscious and unable to effectively control your body, the conscious her can partly affect your behavior. That is not bad. Charlize patted his chest and breathed a sigh of relief. Only then did he notice Charlotte's behavior. Why are you sweeping away the salt that you have sorely sprinkled with? Of course I must sweep away. Charlotte looked at Charlize inexplicably, seeming to be surprised that she still has such nosy curiosity at this time. My purpose of spreading salt is to confirm whether Alexis is always by your side, if it is not always attached to your body or by your side, but in other situations, then the solution is a lot of changes need to be made, and now that it is confirmed, then naturally we have to clean up these fine salts that can stimulate ghosts. Otherwise, if this stuff keeps stimulating ghosts, I won't be able to lure Alexis into it. I have set up the game. Set up a bureau. Charlize frowned and frowned. Why do I always think your actions are like a liar? I was a liar. Charlotte took this as a compliment. Humans have to deal with ghosts and evil things, they have to be deceived and deceived. If they rely on their own strength to deal with ghosts, it is very difficult. It is just like trying to sprint with a cheetah or swimming with a dolphin. More often, I have to rely on this. He knocked his forehead. Forget it, you can clean up the rest yourself. Anyway, it's just cleaning, I'm going to make other preparations. Speaking, Charlotte handed the broom to Charlize, but looked impatient. Charlize took his broomstick with a pouting mouth, but found that the salt grains on the floor that had been swept together by Abraham were mixed with these curly golden hairs, which made the blonde girl's face a little unnatural. Her clothes have not been washed and littered for a long time, and the level of sloppiness is comparable to that of her friend Petunia. Naturally, it is impossible to clean the bedroom frequently. www.mtlnovel.com. And as a young girl who is less than 20 years old, her new metabolism, it's actually very vigorous. Hey, what are you doing? Adjusted from the embarrassment and swept away the salt grains on the floor. Charlize looked up and found that Charlotte was uncovering the poster on the wall. Don't mess around. That's the poster issued at the premiere of First Blood 3, with Sylvester's autograph on it. It's hard to get. Before Charlize could finish, the poster with Rambo had been taken down by Charlotte. Fortunately, because it took a long time to post it, it was not difficult to take it off. The poster was not damaged except that the corners were damaged. To what serious damage? You bastard, this is the only poster I have autographed by Mr. Stallone. If it breaks, what will you pay for me? Charlize's angry accusation had no effect on Charlotte. He didn't even look at the blonde girl who was flaring his teeth and claws. He turned around and picked up a piece of white paper with the ink not yet dried, and pasted it on the place of the previous Rambo poster. The handwriting on the white paper was very scribble. Charlize couldn't understand what was written on it at all. He only felt that it was the same as the signature on the doctor's prescription when he went to the hospital to see a doctor. And before she could carefully identify the ghost-like handwriting, Charlotte put a second piece of white paper on the white paper just pasted. Are these in Japanese? Charlotte was in the same position and repeatedly pasted 3 white papers with strange writing on it. Charlize finally recognized that the font was a strange square character. When she was a model before, she spent some time in RB on the other side of the Pacific and saw similar words. However, Charlotte's response was a contemptuous glance. No, this is Chinese. It's terrible to have no culture. Charlotte was very depressed about Charlize's misunderstanding. However, he also understands that in the early 1990s, RB's influence in the world was much greater than that of China. At this time, Europeans and Americans see an Oriental, and most of them will habitually ask if the other person is an RB. This situation will not be completely reversed until 20 years later. There are indeed many Chinese characters in Japanese. In this case, Charlize habitually considers Japanese characters when he sees Chinese characters, which is not surprising. Of course, although not surprising, the misunderstanding still needs to be solved. The content written on these 3 pieces of paper is actually the same, and they are all 2 Chinese characters for Shentu. Shentu. The 2 words have no corresponding meaning in English. Of course Charlize could not understand. Charlotte had to explain further. Shentu is one of the earliest door gods in ancient China, and the so-called door is the patron saint of the house. People carve the name of the door on a wooden plank made of peach wood, and then hang the wooden board on the door to resist ghosts and evil things. They cannot invade their homes. It turned out to be like this. Charlize nodded, he understood. But why are there three different ways of writing the same name? What are the three ways of writing? There are four ways of writing Huizi. Charlotte continues to complain about the cultural level of Westerners in her heart. Of course, this is just to think about it in my heart, if you really say it, it's looking for a fight. After organizing the language, he explained, Sally, can you sing The Stars and Stripes Never Fall? The Stars and Stripes Never Fall? Isn't that the national anthem of the United States? Charlize nodded, very simply and honestly, I can't sing. What? What's weird? Although I am in Hollywood, my nationality is South Africa. What's weird about a South African girl who can't sing the American national anthem? Besides, the lyrics of that song are so difficult that many Americans don't know how to do it themselves. Sing. What you said is so reasonable, I can't refute it. No way, this example is useless, Charlotte had to change another one. Then let me ask, have you read Shakespeare's original work? Read it. Said that, but Charlize's face turned red. I have read a few articles. In English-speaking countries, Shakespeare can be said to be in existence like the originator of actors and literary circles, although for actors from the bottom of society like Charlize, they are not required to be able to recite this great master as proficiently as drama actors from the UK. There are many works by the author, but if I have read only a few, it is really unreasonable. No wonder Charlize is embarrassed. Just read it. Charlotte didn't use this to expose Charlize's shortness, he went on to explain, since you have read the original, you should know that Shakespeare's works are indeed a bit difficult for modern people to understand. Yes. Charlize nodded, agreeing with Charlotte's statement. At least when I watched A Midsummer Night's Dream for the first time, there were many things I couldn't understand. A Midsummer Night's Dream? I thought you would say The Merchant of Venice. Shut up, Sherlock. In short, the reason why Shakespeare's original works are obscure is because they were written in Old English. Charlotte touched her nose and stopped joking about Charlize. Shakespeare's works were known for their smoothness and beauty, but now they are often obscure and difficult to understand. It is because these works, like The Stars and Stripes Never Fall, are written in Old English. In our view, it is natural it is not easy to understand. This situation can be said to be the inevitable development of language. The history of Chinese is much longer than that of English. In the process of development, it has gone through more stages. I said three ways of writing, is the way the word Shen-tu is written in three specific stages. Said, he pointed to the blank paper he had stuck on the wall. The uppermost layer is the characters used by Chinese people today, simplified characters, while the lower layer is traditional characters, which is a kind of characters they used hundreds of years ago. The difference from simplified characters is actually not that big, and the bottom layer is the yin rune. It is a kind of script that appeared in the Tang dynasty more than 1,000 years ago, but has been lost for a long time. I learned this kind of script through a very special channel. At this point, Charlotte stopped. He picked up another piece of paper. This time it was not a blank paper, but a painting, which was an ancient general with a yellow face, holding a pair of strange bamboo-like pieces in his hands. The weapon of a section. This painting, which Charlize knew, was a painting that she bought from Chinatown today when she and Charlotte were preparing. At the time, Charlotte said that the general in this painting was This is Qin Kaiang. Charlotte pasted the picture on the 3 sheets of white paper already pasted, covering the writing on it. He was a general in the Tang dynasty of China, and he is also one of the 2 most familiar door gods to Chinese people. To use the metaphor of pop music, if Shen-tu is Elvis, then Qin Kaiang is Mike Jackson. So he is more modern than the Shen-tu you mentioned, and is closer to what everyone currently recognizes as a door god. Charlotte's imagery metaphor made Charlize understand in seconds, but at this time she turned into a problem baby. But he is obviously a general, why is he regarded as a door god? Well, Charlotte touched her nose. Different from Shentu, who was regarded as a door when he was born, Qin Kaiang was just a real historical figure at the beginning. He was a general of Tang Taizong. Do you know Tang Taizong? Well, forget it. In short, it is ancient Chinese, a very powerful emperor. You can imagine Caesar and Napoleon. Once again popularized Chinese history by analogy, Charlotte continued, Tang Taizong won a lot of wars and built a huge empire. However, wars and political struggles caused great psychological pressure on him. He often had nightmares, dreaming that the ghosts of the people he killed before turned to him, sucking his life. This made the originally brave emperor very scared. Later, he thought of a way to ask his two most trusted generals to help him guard the gate while he was sleeping. Qin Kaiang was one of them. After that, he never had a nightmare again. Although in our view, this is actually a psychological problem, but in ancient times 1,000 years ago, people thought it was very magical, so they all regarded this. The portraits of the two generals are pasted on the door, hoping that they can help themselves to defend themselves from ghosts like the guardian emperor. So, Qin Kaiang has become a door like this. Yes, until now, the Chinese are still the same as in the past, often sticking his portrait on the door. This is really a magical legend. Charlize sighed. So, you post his portrait, hoping that his power can protect me. Also, although the specific usage is somewhat different. But why do you know this? These strange Eastern techniques always make me feel weird. There is no way, who taught me to catch ghosts and exorcise, it is a Chinese. To be precise, it is a Chinese ghost. Moreover, Lao Tzu was originally a Chinese, what's weird? Charlotte complained in her heart, but looked at the opposite wall, on the poster opposite Qin Kaiang, the one riding a motorcycle and holding a shotgun is a T-800? If you want to post the door god, you have to post a pair. You can take off this poster as well. We want to stay here. On the side, paste the other two door gods corresponding to Qin Kaiang and Shen Tuesday. Okay. After understanding Charlotte's intentions, the blonde girl became very cooperative. She quickly took off the poster of the future governor, and then watched Charlotte put up 3 of the same strange handwriting in the original position. After that, I will paste a picture on the white paper this time. It is a black-faced general. This is Yu Qigong, that is, in the story I just told, together with Qin Kaiang, another general who guarded the gate of Emperor Taizong. www.mtlnovel.com. Seeing that Charlize seemed very interested in portraits, Charlotte was followed her meaning and explained, in ancient China, there were 2 corresponding left and right doors, so the door gods had to be paired in order to function. The counterpart to Qin Kaiang is Yu Qigong, and the counterpart to Shen Tu is Yu Lei, and the 3 white ones behind. On the paper, his name is written. At this point, Charlotte looked around, and felt that the symmetry should be okay, so he breathed a sigh of relief, pinched a strange finger in his hand, and started thinking, thousands of families always exchange new peaches for old ones. Then, he let go of his pinched fingers, and a faint whirlwind suddenly appeared in the bedroom, and then quickly dissipated. This phenomenon made Charlize feel very miraculous. Does the arrangement succeed in this way? Did you recite the spell just now? It is not wrong to say that it is a spell. But in fact, these are 2 lines of poems, just like Tagore's life is as gorgeous as summer flowers, and death is as quiet as autumn leaves. Poetry? Can poetry be used as a spell? Of course you can. Most of the so-called spells are actually psychological hints to the user and the user. From this point of view, compared to the Guladan poems and proverbs in the movie that most people do not understand, the popular modern language is more suitable as a spell. As for this poem, this is the work of Wang Anqi, the great writer of Song dynasty in China. I think it is very suitable for the current situation, so it can be used as a spell. Really? So, the spell you just chanted is indeed like a poem, with beautiful phonology. Charlize gave a dry laugh. Although to me, it is actually the same as the Gulajan Bible used by the exorcists in the movie to exorcise the demon, the same incomprehensible. Cannot understand. Hearing what Charlize said, Charlotte suddenly realized a problem. He immediately closed his eyes and touched the wall of the bedroom with his hand. Sure enough. Compared with yin and yang eyes and so on, you have to touch the real ghost to have a useful spell. Asking the door is the most skillful spell he uses. Because of the arrangement of this spell, although some special tricks are needed to activate the power of the door goaded herwise, the door gods posted by households during the new year are all spells, but unlike many other spells, this spell does not require aura at all. This characteristic is really a rare advantage in this era of the end of Dharma where aura is scarce. For this reason, before crossing, he had mastered the spell of asking the door godel though the test subject was at most an old ghost, and therefore, when he deployed this spell before, he had no worries about the effect. However, the magic of the door is based on the obsession of the house owner to protect the house. Through generations of door gods from old to new, the power of the oldest door whose true identity has been obliterated in the long history is guided out. Attach it to the portrait of a powerful idol model trusted by the house owner to form a protective barrier. However, the effect of this display is very poor, and the resulting barrier can almost be broken with a bomb. Describe, why is this? It's because the activated spell is Chinese. Doesn't Charlize, the owner of the house, understand? Charlotte looked at the blonde girl in front of him and shook his head. It's not that simple. This activation spell is mainly a psychological hint for the caster. I, the caster, can understand Chinese. But if the problem is not here, how can there be so little power to guide? Inheritance of power. Is there something wrong with the pipeline? Hey, what are you in a daze? Is something wrong? Seeing Charlotte staring at herself innocently and muttering in her mouth, Charlize was a little at a loss. She subconsciously knocked on the nagging man with the poster rolled up in her hand. Ah, it turned out to be like this. Was drunk by the girl, Charlotte really figured it out all at once. He yelled in excitement, but Charlize was taken aback again. The essence of this spell is to use the idol model that can protect the house that has been worshipped by people from ancient times to the present for generations to guide the power of the ancient door from China to the portrait of the idol model trusted by the house owner. Charlotte's words were spoken quickly and eagerly. In the words, the English letters were like bullets from a machine gun, continuously lasing out. He grabbed Charlize's shoulder in excitement, and his strength was so powerful that the blonde girl frowned in pain. Sally, do you believe that the characters in the two paintings on the wall can protect you? Facing this question, Charlize was taken aback. Although I think they are amazing, I have no impression of them at all now. It's right. Before Charlize could finish speaking, Charlotte interrupted her with a smile. There was excitement in his eyes, like Einstein, who had just derived the theory of relativity. For the Chinese, Qin Kaiyang and Yu Qigong are the door gods that have been handed down to this day. This custom that is fully integrated into their lives is enough to ensure that these two door gods can gain the subconscious trust of the house owner, and thus obtain the inheritance of strength from the ancient door gods. For you who don't know them at all, this channel of power is not complete at this point. He spoke for a while, released Charlize's shoulders with both hands, but grabbed the rolled-up poster in her hand again. Sally, you will post Sylvester and Arnold posters because you like them and think they are powerful. I think so. Charlize looked at Charlotte, who was a little excited in front of him, and suddenly felt a little scared. At least I like Rambo and T-800 very much. Bingo! Charlotte snapped his fingers. Let's use them to be your door god. What? Seeing Charlotte quickly picking up the remaining blank paper and writing something on it, Charlize was a little at a loss for a while. Go and paste this on Qin Kaiyang. Charlotte didn't even lift her head, and directly handed a piece of white paper to Charlize, while she continued to write with her head down. Qin Kaiyang? When I think about it, the one with the yellow face. According to Charlotte's request, I pasted a white paper on the portrait of the general named Qin Kaiang. Charlize only noticed that this time it was written in English Fan Hixen. What does this mean? It's very simple, in order to perfect the channel for transmitting power, or magic. Charlotte wrote another blank sheet of paper. While he posted the portrait of Yu Qigong opposite Qin Kaiang, he explained to Charlize. As I said just now, because you lack the understanding of the two Chinese door gods Qin Kaiang and Yu Qigong, it is difficult for them to subconsciously trust them. In this way, the magic that I cast to protect you is just because you are the subject of the problem, and there is a problem, unable to borrow enough power from the ancient door god. In order to solve this problem, I changed the original magic model, Qin Kaiang and Yu Qigong, who were originally the door gods who were ultimately able to bear the power. It has become the same relayer as Shen Tu Yu Lei, that is, the pipeline for transmitting power. And Fan Hixen is the next section of this transmission pipeline. Sally, you don't even know Fan Hixen, do you? Master Exorcist expressed dissatisfaction with the man's contempt, and the blonde girl pouted. At this time, she saw that the white paper that was pasted by Charlotte on the opposite portrait of Wei Qigong, said Heracles. Hercules? Speaking of which, Arnold seems to have also acted in a movie called Hercules in New York. Have you seen it too? Charlotte laughed. That movie was good. It was precisely when I thought of that movie that I posted the note of Heracles here. Now he unfolded the poster of Terminator 2 and pasted it back to its original position again, covering the white paper with Heracles behind it and the portrait of Yu Qigong, and at the same time signaled that Charlize should also post Stallone's poster. Go back. It should be fine this time. Looking at the posters of the two muscular men posted again, Charlotte clapped her hands. I feel better now, Sally. Well, it still looks comfortable like this. Charlize nodded. She still liked Arnold and Sylvester more than those two strange Chinese generals. Apart from anything else, just looking at their bulging biceps, it was good. Sense of security. So Charlotte frowned, tapping her temple with her left index finger, seeming to be thinking about something. The next moment, he uttered a new spell, you are 1 in 10,000. It is the moment and the eternity. It is the creator and the ruler. You will surely let your way walk on the earth, as if walking in your country. In an instant, another whirlwind blew in the bedroom. However, compared to the previous one, the wind of the cyclone was much stronger this time, and Charlize's long blonde hair was flying in the wind, shining bright lights, and it looked a little dazzling. Why is the spell different this time? Well, I always feel that since Rambo and T-800 have been used as door gods, the spell should be changed accordingly. Anyway, the nature of the spell is only a psychological suggestion, and it does not need to be strictly consistent. It's like this. But this time the spell is much different from the last time, it feels like praying in a church. Is this what the Bible says? Just treat you like it. Charlotte grumbled ambiguously. He was really ashamed to say that he had seen it from a point mother. Of course, he couldn't say it. He patted the wall. The barrier effect brought by the door this time is much better. It seems that the modern door used as the ultimate power carrier must be adapted to local conditions. Originally, the use of the door this time is a reverse application, which is more troublesome, but it is okay. It's finally done. Reverse application. Yeah, don't you think it is weird? Looking at the confused Charlize, Charlotte's face showed a very flat smile. As I said before, the so-called door is posted on the door to protect the safety of the house. Reading www.yuyugonshu.com avoids the intrusion of evil things. In short, this is a defense mechanism to the outside world. Why am I going to put it in your bedroom? Because, reverse application. The girl is very smart. If she contacted Charlotte, she immediately understood. The lock is externally for protection, internally for isolation. Do you want to isolate the ghost attached to me and prevent it from running away? That's right. Charlotte nodded, and was surprised at Charlize's ability to comprehend. It seems unbelievable that the blonde has a low IQ. When catching a ghost, the ghost may run away halfway. If you don't take precautions in advance and let it run away, you will lose everything. Later it will come back to pester you. After explaining all this, Charlotte's face suddenly became serious. Now, the preparations have been completed. Sally, we are about to officially start. Next, I will summon Alexis again, but unlike last time, I will try to keep you conscious this time. In this case, you will be in a very special state. You can see, hear, and feel, but you cannot effectively control your body. At this time, it will be Alexis that controls your body. You have to try to get Alexis to act according to the script I told you before in this week's situation. There is a problem. Looking at Charlize, who raised her hand like a good baby, Charlotte couldn't help laughing. What is the problem? You also said that in this case, I can't control my body. So, what should I do to make Alexis act according to the script you designed? Well. Charlotte smirked. Aren't you an actor?